The secret is out. Zion National Park was the second most visited park last year. Zion is a really special place to us and a place that we believe is for everybody to visit, whether you're young and you're a big hiker, or whether you're older and you're not as big of a hiker, or whether you have kids with you.
We're Matt and Cheryl, and our YouTube channel is We're in the Rockies, and we are born and raised Utahns and have spent our entire lives visiting the national parks. And so our mission is to help people travel to the West and be able to enjoy their trip. So today we're talking about how to visit Zion National Park. All right, so grab your paper and pencil because we're going to be covering where to stay, how to get there, the best hikes, other things to do, lodging, the shuttle system, when to go, and just a lot of little tidbits that only locals know about.
Two real quick disclaimers before we start. First of all, we do sell a travel guide for Zion National Park, so if you're in a hurry for a game plan, you can go to our website, we'reintherockies.com, and check out that travel guide. It's going to give you a good, straightforward game plan to see Zion National Park. We will talk more about it at the end of this video as well. The second thing is, this video is current as of February 2022. But keep in mind that Zion goes through a lot of changes. We encourage you to check the park website. We're going to put a bunch of resources in the description, but just know that there could be some changes in between the time you watch us today and the time that you visit the park. So you need to be on top of it here. Okay, the first thing we want to do is give you an overview of Zion National Park. So it is located in southern Utah. It is about 2 hours away from Las Vegas. And then there are other things to do around Zion as well that people will often team up with their Zion experience, and that is Bryce Canyon National Park. It's about 2 hours away from Zion on the east side. Grand Canyon National Park is about probably 2 hours away from Zion on the south side. And that's the Grand Canyon North Rim. And then sometimes people will also team it up with what's called the Utah Mighty 5 road trip. 5 national parks in Utah, and you can kind of hit them all in order as you work your way across the state. So there's Zion, there's Bryce National Park, there's Capitol Reef, Arches National Park, and Canyonlands. Other people will do a major loop, which is to do that Mighty 5 road trip, drop down to Monument Valley, head back to the Grand Canyon and back to Las Vegas. That's a monumental road trip, but I have seen some people who've done that. Now let's talk about Zion specifically. There are 4 sections to the park, 4 different roads that run through the park that you can get to. There's Zion Canyon, the Zion Canyon Scenic Drive, which is by far the most visited section of the park. This is Zion Canyon, and it's what people think of when they think of Zion. It's what they're coming to see and do.
And it's where the shuttles are that you're always hearing about. You take a shuttle into the Zion Canyon.
Yep, but there are 3 other roads that you can drive to in the park that are really scenic as well. So that's kind of a little overview of Zion, and we're going to go into each of the things to do and help you understand more about Zion National Park.
As we said before, we really do believe Zion National Park is for everybody. When we go there, you'll see a lot of people that are younger because they're really into hiking, but I don't want the hikes to scare anybody off because you can have a phenomenal trip to Zion just from the seat of your car. The main thing to do is to take this shuttle bus up the main canyon, and that's about a 45-minute ride from the Zion Visitor Center up to the Riverwalk. There's 9 stops that will take that the shuttle can stop at, and sometimes those stops are closed depending on what's going on at the time, certain stops, but it's a 45-minute ride to the Riverwalk, and then the Riverwalk's the most popular hike in the canyon. It's just a 1-mile paved trail, and it's fairly level. Most people can do that, and when you go on that Riverwalk, you're going to be in the middle of a canyon with beautiful 1,000-foot red rock walls on the sides of you. And it's just a very, very enjoyable little walk. And at the end of that Riverwalk is the very famous Narrows.
And so what this is Zion Canyon is narrowing down and down. Like as you drive up the shuttle, you're going into the depths of the canyon, basically. By the time you get to the end of the Riverside Walk, there's no more room for a sidewalk. So the only option at that point is to get in the river and walk up the river. And so that is called the Narrows, the famous Narrows that you see people walking up through the river. And that goes for really as long as you want it to go for, and then you turn around and come back. But it does go for a few miles at least up there. So that could be kind of an all-day thing or maybe a half-a-day thing for you.
And we actually made a whole other video about how to do the Narrows. You ought to check it out because it talks about the gear you need and things like that.
You don't have to have gear to do it. You can just get in with your tennis shoes or your sandals if you really wanted to. We have seen some people do that, but we really recommend the gear. It makes it much easier to walk around on the rocks in the river.
And just a lot more comfortable. That water, even in the summer, is cold.
So the gear that you can rent from town is the waterproof, not waterproof, but water boots. So it does let water come through, but it kind of keeps your feet warmer. And the stick, the wooden stick for stability as you're going through, because the river current is kind of
it can be quick, and the rocks can be kind of round and slippery.
Yeah. So, and then they also have socks.
The neoprene socks keep your feet warm.
So that's during the summer. During the winter, they actually have kind of a wetsuit that you put on. So you just want to work with the local companies in town to get the gear. Not hard at all. Okay, this is actually a very easy, doable thing and an exciting thing to do. That's like, you've got to do this if you visit Zion. So
yeah, and then there's other hikes. We talk about the 8 shuttle stops. There's hikes and lookouts at each of these stops. The other hike that Zion is really famous for is Angel's Landing. Now, we've learned from, we've been doing our channel for about 2 years now. We've learned that most people that go to Zion don't do Angel's Landing. And I definitely have to say, don't feel like you missed out if you don't do Angel's Landing. It's not for everybody. It's an intense hike. You get over 1,600 feet elevation gain on that. There are death-defying falls on both sides of you, and you have to hold onto a chain as you hike. And it's 5 miles. Now, granted, I love this hike. I do it whenever I can, but you're still going to have a great Zion experience if you don't do this hike.
Some of you are specifically coming to Zion just to do Angel's Landing. Like, that is the thing that you are dreaming about. And so you must do Angel's Landing if that's your dream. But we just are trying to say it's not, for everybody. And most people don't do Angel's Landing. Only about a percentage, like 1% of people that visit Zion do Angel's Landing. But those who do, they dream of doing Angel's Landing. So,
yes.
So it's great. And you want to do it if that's up your alley. You have to be okay with heights. You have to be in really good shape. The hike is 5 miles long. There's a lot of switchbacks, and you're going up pretty steep terrain there. So good shape and be okay with heights. Okay. Now, having said that, in 2022, this hike is popular enough. They get about 1,000 people a day on average that do this hike. And it's popular enough that they now are doing a lottery system for it, so it doesn't get overwhelmed. And now I've done a whole nother video on this that you want to watch, but briefly, the lottery works in 2 ways. They have 4 seasonal periods where they'll open up the lottery for 3 weeks, and you have to enter your name in during that 3-week period. And you can enter a group of up to 6 people during that period. Then they will select the people for a 3-month period. So when you go in on that 3-week period, you're going to put when you're visiting the park during that 3-month period. And then they're going to make the selections, and then it's all closed. And then they'll reopen for the next season. So they have a spring, summer, fall, and winter lottery for Angel's Landing. I was a little surprised they had a winter one. So apparently people are still, it's popular enough even during the winter that they're doing it. So you just need to make sure you get in on, that you enter the lottery at the right time for your 3-month window that you're going to be there. The lottery is on recreation.gov. So just go to recreation.gov and search for Angel's Landing, and it'll pull it up by the seasonal lottery. Okay, now after the seasonal lottery, let's say you weren't able to get in on the seasonal lottery, or maybe you're kind of coming to the party a little late on that. You can do a day before lottery is what they call it. So literally the day before you're going to visit the park, you can enter into the lottery before 3 p.m. Mountain Time. At 4 p.m., they'll send you an email to let you know whether you were selected for the next day. So that's an option too. Of course, it's not something you would plan your trip around relying on that. But as we already said, if you're not able to do Angel's Landing, trust us, Zion is worth it. It's amazing. We haven't done it for many, many years actually because we have little kids, and so we didn't want to take them up there. Last year, Cheryl went and did it while I took the kids off and did Emerald Pools Trail, but it's not something we do every time, and you don't have to do it to enjoy Zion. Yes,
and that kind of leads into some more of the things to do at Zion. So along those shuttle stops, there are other hikes. So we talked about Angel's Landing. There's the Emerald Pools that Matt took the kids on that has some beautiful scenery. The emerald pools are not the star, like the actual pools are not the star of the hike. It's the canyon walls.
Yeah, these just towering canyon walls that kind of engulf you on that hike. That's a really cool one. And all the things that we've mentioned so far are in the main Zion Canyon. The one that everybody's coming to visit, the one that you have to take the shuttle through during the busy season.
And one of my very favorite little walks, this is if you're not wanting to do a major hike, but something that I found really enjoyable, is the Grotto Trail. The Grotto Trail goes between the grotto where you get off to do Angel's Landing and then the Zion Lodge. So it's like stop 4 and 5. And a lot of times the lines at the shuttles can get kind of long, but sometimes the stops between the shuttles are not very long. And so in that one, I think it's about a mile between the two, and it's just a very pleasant walk where there's not many people on the trail. It's fairly level, even kind of downhill if you're going from the grotto to the lodge. And you can just look up into the canyon, and it's really a beautiful walk. That was one of my special little hidden gems that I discovered when I was there when I did the Angel's Landing all by myself. I really enjoyed doing that portion of it all on my own.
As we mentioned, there's more to Zion than just Zion Canyon. So there are 3 other sections to the park, and you can drive to all of these. You don't have to take a shuttle to them. And they're lesser visited, and they're also very scenic. They're not right in the canyon like you are in Zion Canyon, but they've got some really impressive scenery themselves, as well as some viewpoints and some hikes. So our guide actually gets you to a lot of the secret spots that no other guides are really going to get you to on some of those places.
And I did want to mention one little spot that I love. When you drive through Matt did a whole video on the Mount Carmel Road and driving out to the east entrance of the park. But the Checkerboard Mesa is beautiful and fun. You know, if you're not getting out of, I think about generations traveling together, like if you've got grandparents with you and grandchildren, the grandparents can enjoy the ride, and the grandchildren can go climb around on the famous Utah Slick Rock, which is really only slick if it's wet. And it's not wet very often in Zion because that place is a desert. But the kids love to scramble around on those rocks, and it's a great thing to take your little children to do. So other things to do. You can rent bikes. Near the visitor center at Zion National Park, there are 2 or 3 gear rental businesses that will rent things like gear to hike the Narrows, bikes, rock climbing gear. So Zion is big for rock climbing. And that's one of the fun things about when you're riding the shuttle up the canyon is you can see people climbing these massive rocks. So even if you're not the rock climber, it's fun to view the rock climbers. You can also rent bikes to ride around. I've always been a little hesitant to ride a bike up the canyons because there's not much of a shoulder. Even though cars are generally not allowed up the main canyon, there's still plenty of shuttles, and I think it's a little dangerous for my taste, but plenty of people do enjoy riding their bikes through the canyon. Other things that people really enjoy to do, including us, are attending the ranger programs in the evening. The National Park Service does an incredible job about teaching about their parks, and the campfire programs are one of my favorites. After a day of hiking around and seeing the scenery, it's nice to go sit down with other travelers that have been doing the same thing you've been doing all day and hear the rangers teach you a little bit more about it. Plus, the rangers also offer other guided hikes, little presentations at the visitor center and the Museum of Human History. And so those are also some really neat things you can do while you're visiting the park, and the Junior Ranger program. If you're traveling with young travelers, the Junior Ranger program is incredible. They range it from ages 5 to 17, and it just same booklet, but they'll have the kids do different pages. And Matt's mom always wants to get one of those books because she wants to be a grandma ranger.
Yes.
So fun activities then the kids get a little badge when they complete it and get sworn in as a honorary ranger.
Now, everybody descends upon Zion Canyon, that one portion of the park, Zion Canyon, and for good reason. It's been called Yosemite in color. But we want you to think a little bigger than just Zion Canyon. And you do need to do Zion Canyon, of course. We would say try to spend, at least 2 days in there, or parts of 2 days. But we want you to think a little bit bigger than just Zion Canyon as well, including the other sections of the park and even things to do outside of the park. So a couple of things that we want to mention about that. We did a Jeep ride last year.
Through Zion Jeep Tours. You know, it was nice. They can't go actually inside Zion National Park, but there's so much beautiful scenery outside the park. And our kids were so excited to go on the Jeep tour because our children don't particularly love to hike. But seeing all that scenery from the Jeep, and then our tour guide that took us told us all sorts of fun things like the resurrecting moss. Like, it was fun. We learned a lot and we got to see a lot. So that was really cool.
Yeah, great. I'm telling you, the whole area is awesome. So we got to some great viewpoints there. And then Cedar Breaks National Monument is pretty close. This is kind of flies under the radar, but it's like Bryce Canyon Jr. So I always suggest, hey, if you're not going to go all the way over to Bryce Canyon, at least go to Cedar Breaks and check it out because, wow, that's a stunner.
And then Snow Canyon, which is about an hour away from Zion, right?
Yeah.
Snow,
right.
So this is a state park, a Utah state park, that if it was in almost any other state would be a national park. It's that cool. They have petrified sand dunes and slick rock and nice canyons to crawl around in lava tubes, and
it's pretty. It's really pretty.
And not as crowded as Zion. It's a state park, but just definitely worth checking out.
There's another one, by the way, called Valley of Fire State Park in Nevada. This is between Las Vegas and Zion. And we always say Valley of Fire and Snow Canyon. It's kind of funny because they sound opposite. One's on fire, one has snow. But Snow Canyon doesn't have actually really much snow.
It's named after a person with the last name of Snow.
Yeah, they're both Red Rock canyons, but we can't decide which one we like better, right? So we just say they're both awesome. Snow Canyon is located in St. George. So St. George is the largest kind of
city near
gateway
Zion.
City near Zion. And also at St. George, the other thing we recommend to do is the Tuacahn Outdoor Theater. So go watch a play at the Tuacahn Theater with these red rock walls surrounding you. A really, really professional, award-winning plays. This is really, really top-notch.
Yeah, Broadway quality in an amazing venue.
It's crazy. People overlook St. George. They're coming from Las Vegas and they go to Zion and they don't even think about St. George, which is worthy of just visiting for a week and doing all the things around St. George.
In fact, we're considering writing a guide for St. George alone just because we think you can go there and have a really incredible trip. But not done. Haven't done it yet.
Not yet. And then just a couple more things around the park is there is a city named Kanab that's on the east side of Zion. So we're aware that some people will stay in Kanab and they'll hit Zion and Bryce and the Grand Canyon all from that one spot. I don't know that I'd recommend it because it's kind of a lot of driving every day to get to those parks, but it's doable. You could stay in Kanab and use that as a jumping off point for all three parks. Kanab used to be called Little Hollywood. Movie theaters came in and shot over 100 movies in Kanab, Utah, of all places. And then there's a little ghost town that's just right outside of Zion called Grafton Ghost Town that you can visit today. It's actually a pretty cool spot and like an Instagram worthy, a pretty famous ghost town, and also many westerns were shot there, including Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, a movie that you should watch before you visit Zion because you're going to see some Zion scenery in the movie. This whole story of Hollywood coming to Utah is a really fascinating one that I've covered in my audio guide for the park. So really some cool stuff. In fact, I did another video on movies that you should watch before you visit Zion to get you excited for your trip.
All right. So let's talk about getting there. As Matt mentioned earlier, most people will fly into Las Vegas and then drive to Zion.
So if you fly into Vegas, it's about 2 hours to to Zion. So we would not recommend staying in Las Vegas and seeing Zion from there. You want to stay closer to Zion because you want to get a pretty early start to your day at Zion National Park. So most people will stay in St. George or in Hurricane or Lavercan. So Hurricane looks like hurricane, but it's pronounced Hurricane. And Hurricane and Lavercan are right next to each other, and they're about a half hour away, and they're really the best value to stay. As I mentioned, it's also possible to enter Zion from the east side. So people you might be coming from Bryce Canyon and you enter it from the east side. You might be coming from the Grand Canyon and you come up through Kanab and enter it in through the east side as well. So those are like popular ways that you would get there to Zion National Park. If you're coming from Salt Lake, you'll be driving down I-15. It's about a 4-hour drive there. You'll pass a city called Cedar City. And I am aware that some people will stay in Cedar City to visit Zion. And that's because from Cedar City, they can hit Zion and drive over to Bryce Canyon from that one spot there. So I've talked to some people who did that.
Many people do Zion as part of a larger road trip, including the Grand Canyon, Bryce, or even the Utah Mighty Five with arches and Capitol Reef and Canyonlands attached to it. And we actually cover all these places, have guides for them. We have our website, we'reintherockies.com, that has trip planners and articles. And then we make playlists on our YouTube channel so that when you're checking out those locations, you can look at our videos on the lodging or the things to do, just so that you can have a good idea of what to expect on these trips and how many days to plan. Really, our whole goal is to make traveling to the West easy. We don't want you to have to read a bunch of travel books to get the information you need. So check out our playlist on our YouTube channel and our website, and it'll really help you out on planning your trip.
One word of advice real quick is a lot of people will try to kind of hit all these places in a day or half a day, and they'll just kind of go to the overlooks or look at the canyon real quick and then move on, like with Arches, Canyonlands, Capitol Reef, Bryce, Zion, the Grand Canyon. They'll just hit them very quickly and move on. I would caution against that only because they're all red rock parks, and so they might kind of all start to look the same after a while. And if you're just kind of glancing at it and moving on, you might kind of regret that. I would more treat this a little bit more like plan on coming back to the Southwest at some point and enjoy the parks a little bit more.
Yeah, maybe go into a hike in one of them, get to interact with them, because after a while, lookouts can all look the same. And if that's all you're doing, you're not really going to experience these parks. So I completely agree with that.
We understand the temptation, though. You're coming out, like you want to see them all. They're bunched together. But like we're spending almost a week to go to Monument Valley this year, Capitol Reef a few days. So anyway, just take your time with it a little bit.
All right, let's talk about what's on everyone's mind, the shuttles, getting around. All right, so the first thing you need to know is that there are 2 shuttle systems that operate at Zion National Park. There's the one that's actually within the national park, and that's one we've been talking about, that will take you up the main canyon, up to the Riverwalk that's called the Temple of Sinawava. It's a 45-minute ride, and it'll take you there and back. It runs generally from
around February to November.
The months it runs is February to November. They will also pick up service during busy times, and so you'll want to check the park website and see when it's running, because it does change from time to time, and the hours of day that it runs will change from time to time too. So that's the main shuttle system. There's no ticket required when you go in. You just get in line to ride the shuttle, and the line can be quite long. The busiest time is between 8 a.m. and 1 p.m. But the line can be up to an hour long, but other times it's only 15 minutes. I don't feel like we've ever waited more than that. No. Even when we've traveled when it was peak travel season, they are doing a phenomenal job, Zion National Park, of transporting people in and out of the park. So that's the main shuttle system. The second one is a shuttle system in the city of Springdale. Springdale is a city immediately outside the gates of Zion National Park. If you end up staying in Springdale, you can generally walk to a shuttle stop and it'll get you to the park. But there's not adequate parking at the Zion Visitor Center for everyone that visits National Park. And so many people have to park within Springdale. There's some parking lots, there's lots of parking on the road, but the Springdale shuttle, it transports people to the visitor center where they can catch the main shuttle up the canyon. And you can plan on paying between $25 and $35 to park in Springdale.
Yeah, so the parking in Springdale costs money. The parking in Zion National Park does not cost money, but there's not much of that parking. So if you're not there really, really early, you probably won't get a spot there.
And if you do park in Springdale, you will still need to pay to enter Zion National Park. Even if you end up walking to the visitor center, you'll still pay to get into the park.
Yeah, they have a dedicated walk-in entrance for the majority of the people who are going to be taking the Springdale shuttle to the park. So I want to emphasize here that the shuttle system is actually very easy. People get a little stressed about it, but wow, they do an amazing job of moving 5 million people per year in and out of that canyon. It's insane. And so they do great. Also, both shuttles are free, so you don't have to worry about that. Yeah, that's how you're going to get around Zion Canyon, is through that shuttle.
Yes, and then a couple other things to know about getting around the park is that if you want to park at the Zion Visitor Center, that is definitely the most convenient, but that parking lot is almost always full by 7:30. It's a big parking lot, but there's a lot of early morning hikers. So if you're coming in after 7:30, you'll want to park in Springdale. And there will be signage outside the gate of the park that'll say if that parking lot's full. But yeah, I'd say anytime after 7:30 a.m., that parking lot is going to be full.
Okay, so I've done a whole nother video on actually this shuttle system just to help you out if you want to watch that. But we're just kind of giving you the brief overview here.
Do not stress if you are worried about the shuttle system. Our guide, we walk you through a good spot to park so that you're not driving around town looking. We think we have a pretty good system of where to park your car regardless of when you arrive. That'll get you smoothly into the park to take the shuttles.
During the busy season when the shuttle is running, you cannot drive your car up the shuttle or up the Zion Canyon. You cannot drive your car in the Zion Scenic Drive. There are 2 exceptions to that rule though. One is if you're staying at the Zion Lodge, you can drive up the canyon in order to park at the lodge so that you can stay there. But you can't drive any farther than the lodge. You're still going to have to hop on a shuttle to head up the canyon farther. The other exception is if you have a horseback ride in the canyon. Canyon Trail Rides is the only company that can give horseback rides in Zion Canyon, which I can't believe I haven't done this yet, so I'm looking forward to doing that someday. But you can drive up the canyon to park there for the horse ride. But then you have to leave the canyon when your horse ride is done. You cannot stay there for the day. So for the most part, whenever the shuttle's running, you're going to have to take that shuttle into the canyon.
If you bring an RV, we've got the main canyon, which no one drives their car up. And then we've got the other road, the Mount Carmel Road that heads to the east entrance of the park. And there's a cool tunnel you can drive through. But if you have an RV, you need to have a permit for that. Where can you buy that?
We'll put a link to the park website here, but basically you just have to contact on the park website to get your permit for that.
And it costs some money because they have to stop, because that tunnel is so small, they have to block the one direction of traffic so that you can drive your RV through.
Because you have to drive down the middle of the road.
Yes. So just know that the shuttle system is not as scary as it sounds. I think in the past when they started doing ticketed shuttles and things like that, it made it very stressful, but that's not the situation now. And our guide does cover some helpful ways to navigate that shuttle system.
Okay, let's talk about what to pack for your trip.
All right. So the first thing we recommend is a good water bottle or a hiking backpack. So we recently purchased these for our last trips. These are just Camelbacks. They come with a water bladder in them. This one's the Mule. It carries 3 liters of water, which is what Zion National Park recommends you carry around because it is so hot there.
Yeah, it's in the desert, of course. It's in this Red Rock area. So it is very hot, and that's another reason why the parking lot's fill up so early. People are trying to do the hikes in the morning before it gets really boiling hot during the afternoon. So Camelback is highly recommended.
It's nice to be able to have easy access to your water, and you can fit all sorts of stuff in here. If you're hiking the Narrows, we recommend bringing a second pair of shoes. You can fit another pair of shoes in there because you don't want to be hiking around in wet shoes after the Narrows. And this was just a nice lightweight one and pretty moderately priced. It was under $100, so I was pretty excited about that.
Got the kids one here for the little kiddos to have theirs as well.
Yeah, that one carries 50 ounces of water. And so a good, or at least bring a backpack with a good water bottle in it. I like my Clean Canteen. That's a good water bottle. It keeps things cold forever. Just make sure you have a good way to carry about 3 liters of water if you're going to be hiking around. But even if you're not going to hike around, I still think you need to bring some water with you because even riding on the shuttle, it's 45 minutes there, 45 minutes back, and that's if you don't get off.
Okay, also, Cheryl has listed on our list here spandex. Wear your spandex if you're a woman to hike around in, not jeans. So if you're a guy, wear your shorts. Because again, it's hot. Now, one caveat here, Zion's open in the winter. So if you're trying to go off season to see Zion, you can certainly go in the winter, but it does get cold and it does get snowy there. So we were there just in December and all the hiking paths were covered in snow. But most of you are going to be visiting during the hot season and when it's warm and stuff. So spring and fall, are really gorgeous. I mean, t-shirts, shorts, spandex.
It's basically what you would wear if you're going to be doing hiking. Wear what you would wear to the gym. Most people are wearing that, so don't feel like you need to have like the special hiking clothes with the cargo pockets. That's really not what people wear there. They tend to wear more of their workout clothes, if that's something you're worried about.
Footwear, tennis shoes. We always say in the desert Southwest, we always say tennis shoes, not
hiking boots.
Because unless you're doing backcountry hiking.
But even at Zion, the trails are mostly paved, or they're very, very, very groomed trails. So you're not walking on rocks a whole lot. I feel like a pair of trail runners are perfect because they're lightweight, your feet don't get hot in them, and they still have some decent traction on them. I used to sell shoes when I was in college, and I've been a runner for over 20 years. I love my Asics. We'll put the link in the description for the shoes I like, but just get a good pair of trail runners that you feel comfortable in, and you should feel pretty good on your feet.
Okay, as we mentioned, it's actually high elevation and it's dry. So Zion's over 3,000 feet in elevation, even at the bottom of the canyon. Up the top of the canyon, over 5,000 or something like that. So anyway, sunscreen, moisturizer, chapstick, a hat for shade. All these things are good things to bring with you. Cheryl likes these Mayo water enhancer.
Yes, this is like a water flavor with, I think, get one with a little bit of caffeine in it when you hit that afternoon slump from walking around. Can do you some good.
But all these desert Southwest parks, like the Grand Canyon and Zion, there have actually been a few instances of people drinking too much water and not eating enough food. So what they're all recommending is eat salty snacks in addition to drinking water.
Yeah, so bring some peanuts with some salt on them. That'll help you out. And then gum is great too. Gum or some mints, because your mouth can get pretty dry. I think even us Utahns that are used to this dry desert air, we get dried out when we go to Zion. So I can only imagine how uncomfortable it can get for people that are used to living with humidity. That you just need, you need something in your mouth to kind of keep it moist.
And then camera. Okay, so if you're kind of into photos, or if you want some nice photos of the park, consider bringing a nicer camera than just your phone. The phones do great nowadays; they're great and all that. But if you're into photography, this is a good place for you. In fact, this isn't a photography book; it's an art book. But this is a place for artists. Like, this is a really scenic place that people just love to, compose their images or their artwork or whatever. So consider bringing a nice camera.
Next, let's talk about safety. It's always like a number one concern. Okay, the number one problem at Zion is dehydration. People don't pack enough water. So as we said before, if you're doing any of those longer hikes, 3 liters of water for an adult, you will be sweating a lot. So make sure you do that. But one thing to know is that don't feel like you need to have gallons and gallons of water on you. There's plenty of water stations. There's a water station at every single stop along that canyon, the visitor center. So it's not like you need to pack water into the park. There's water everywhere within the park. It's just that once you get ready to go up the trail, that's when you need to fill up before you go.
Number 2, don't feed the squirrels. So they don't want you feeding the squirrels because they want to keep wildlife wild. But also, squirrels have bitten people before, and so that's like the number one animal-related injury at Zion National Park is the squirrels. Also, keep in mind there are cliffs and ledges, of course, all over the place. It's a national park, so there aren't fences everywhere to protect you from yourself or to protect your kids. So just be aware, keep an eye out for that, and don't let your kids kind of go running off in front of you if you can prevent that.
All right, next is the canyon can get very narrow at spots, and so there's a risk for flash floods. There's always a sign for the risk of flash floods right when you enter the canyon, and of course they're going to warn people if they feel there's going to be a flash flood. But it's just something to be aware of, is that a flash flood can happen quickly. So just pay attention to weather conditions and be smart.
Yeah, so if you were hiking the Narrows, for example, and you see debris like trees and limbs and dirt flowing down the river, that's a sign of a flash flood coming. So even if it's not raining overhead, there could be one coming from rain up the river a ways. So anyway, you want to get to high ground if that happens. And then finally, we've listed falling rocks here as a potential safety thing to at least maybe be aware of. So
they do have rock slides from time to time.
So right now the Weeping Rock stop, which is an awesome stop where you go and see the water dripping down, that's closed unfortunately because of a rock slide. So they do happen. They do happen sometimes.
Okay, there you go. Safety. All right, so when is the best time to visit? Well, fortunately for the 5 million people that want to visit Zion, it's a great place to visit year-round. Mm-hmm. It really is. I loved it when we went this December. It was cool to see it in the winter. But I would say the best time to visit Zion National Park would be October, November-ish, or I would say even April, May-ish.
Yeah. Would
be good. Avoiding holidays like Thanksgiving or spring break.
Right. And then there's a Utah holiday or a Utah fall break, and all the families run down there to Zion National Park. So you want to avoid that. That's in October.
The third weekend in October. Yeah. Every year is when Utah schools are out. So just avoid that weekend if you go in October.
Now, October, we went just 2 Octobers ago maybe. And wow, just gorgeous. So here's one of the things, I didn't even mention this about Zion, but it's more than just the Red Rock Canyon that you're in. It's that along the bottom of the canyon, the Virgin River runs through there. So there's all this greenery and there's cottonwood trees. And so you've got the green contrasted against the red walls, and it's gorgeous. In October, the trees are starting to change colors. So, I mean, wow.
It's really pretty.
It is really pretty.
If you're going in the summer, June, July, and August, you need to keep in mind that you'll be dealing with 90-degree and above temperatures every single day. And I would say that it's even hotter than that because the rocks trap the heat and reflect it onto you when you're hiking.
Good. Okay, let's talk about where to stay. So, there's a lot of places you can stay when you visit Zion, actually. There's not just one gateway town, really. You have a lot of options. So let's kind of start from Zion and work our way out a little bit. Within Zion, there's only one place to stay, and that's the Zion Lodge. And you'll stay in a little cabin. It's a series of cabins next to the lodge, and that would be amazing.
But unfortunately, I would say that the Zion Lodge is one of the least cool lodges in the national park system.
So the lodge is not cool.
Yeah.
But you don't stay in the lodge, you stay in one of these little cabins.
Yeah.
And the location is amazing. So
yes.
Right in front of the lodge is this big tree with a grassy area where deer are always hanging out there. And the tree, it's real common to hang out underneath the tree with the shade and have a picnic or something like that. And you're just right there with the canyon walls. It's so cool. Mm-hmm. So that would actually be really cool. But it's kind of rustic. There's no, I think, TVs there's no TVs, no cell connection, no internet connection, anything like that. Just outside of the park, though, is Springdale.
Which is a darling town. Mm-hmm. So cute.
Really, they've done a great job. They keep it up really well. And they manage all these visitors really well because almost all the visitors come through Springdale. And so that's actually a nice place to stay, but it's going to be a little more expensive because it's right by the park.
And it is really small. And they have one grocery store, the Happy Camper grocery store. They've got a Subway where you could pick up something before you go into the park. They've got a few restaurants. Actually, they have quite a few restaurants. But it's one road. Springdale is not big. It is tiny.
And they have many places to stay there in Springdale, including bed and breakfasts. So we haven't actually stayed in Springdale at any of these places, so we don't have personal recommendation, but when I looked at a bunch of the reviews there, the good ones were Zion Canyon Bed and Breakfast, Desert Pearl Inn, or Best Western Plus. But really, I'm sure there's many other great ones. So Springdale will be fine, but plan on spending maybe up around $250 a night to stay in Springdale. Then as you move away from Springdale, the prices are going to get a little bit cheaper. As we mentioned, La Verkin and Hurricane are two. we always laugh because it does look like hurricane, but it's pronounced Hurricane. These are two cities right by each other that are really probably the best value. They're about a half hour away from the park, and I don't remember how much the prices would be there, but the two places that we think are quite nice there are the Best Western and the La Quinta Inn. They're really right there to jump off and go see Zion.
Yeah, and honestly, the prices there can be kind of pricey too. I mean,
yeah.
we stayed in a hotel that wasn't that nice. It was $200 a night at the peak of the travel season.
Yeah, they know they're a pretty good jumping off spot for the park. So if you're willing to go a little bit further away, then you go to the city of St. George, which has oodles of places to stay.
And you can get very, very cheap lodging in St. George or very nice lodging in St. George. And tons of VRBOs or Airbnbs.
Oh, yeah, just tons of condos. Just tons of options.
We always stay in St. George.
We do. Well, if we don't camp, we stay in St. George. So it's about a 45-minute drive from St. George. It's just fun. It's great. And
St. George has a lot of other things to do. When you travel with children or even national parks, and it's just Matt and I, we like to do a little adventure too. We want to do a little more than sightsee. And so we like St. George because we can go see a play at Tuacahn. We can check out some cool parks in St. George, and there's some cool history in St. George too.
Great walking. I'm actually going to prepare like a walking tour of downtown St. George. It's really cute down there. And there's a cool little park that overlooks the town with this crack that you can climb through. It's really fun for the kids and for skinny adults.
We used to be able to go through the crack. Not so much anymore.
So St. George is great. Like, it's got the most options. Don't feel like you're robbing yourself of time by staying in St. George. It's awesome. As I mentioned, some people will stay in Cedar City so that they can drop down to Zion or drive across the mountains to Bryce Canyon National Park that way. Some people will stay on the east side in Kanab, and they'll hit Bryce and they'll hit Zion, the Grand Canyon from Kanab. So, man, there's so many options for lodging there around Zion.
Okay, next let's talk about campgrounds. Zion doesn't have a ton of campgrounds, but the campgrounds they have are pretty great. Yeah, so I think the big advantage to camping in Zion is that you don't have to deal with finding a parking place to ride the shuttle. The campgrounds there's two. There's Watchman and South Campground, and they're right by each other, and depending on where your campsite is, it's a quarter mile to a half a mile walk from your campground to the shuttle stop. And as of last year, they were both reservation-only campgrounds. One of them used to be a walk-in, but due to visitation, they've switched it over so that they're both reservation-only, and it's desert camping. So don't think about having pine trees and shade. It's very much kind of exposed camping, so you're getting a lot of sunshine there. A lot of the time of the year, they don't allow campfires because of the risk of forest fires. And so just be prepared for that. Once again, check the website to see what the fire restrictions are during that time. But the campgrounds, they do have flushing toilets. They have running water, but it's just only cold water. There's water spigots around. There's dump stations, but there's no hookups at these campgrounds.
Both of them just right there by the visitor center, right next to each other. You couldn't go wrong with either one. We like them both. We camped in both of them. They're great.
So next, here's what to expect on a typical day visiting Zion National Park. You'll most likely arrive when the visitor center parking is already full, and so you'll need to park your car in Springdale and take the shuttle into the park to the visitor center.
So the Springdale shuttle will drop you off right at the entrance of the park, and then have a dedicated walking entry, and you'll encounter a ranger toll booth there.
And whether you're entering with your car to park at the visitor center or the walking entry, you'll need to pay entrance to get into the park. It's generally $35 for a family for an entire week to Zion National Park, or you can purchase a year-long pass for all the national parks, which is what we recommend doing because we're always visiting more than one national park in a year, and you may be too, especially if you're on a road trip. There are some discounted passes for seniors and veterans and people with disabilities, and you may want to check into that, but you will need to pay entrance regardless of how you enter the park.
You can pay that. By the way, the yearly pass is $80, and you can buy that pass at the ranger booth as you enter if you would like to. Some people like to buy it online in advance, and you can do that too.
Okay, once you get to the park, you'll go through the visitor center. There's a restroom there, a water filling station, and some great outdoor displays. The last 3 years, the indoor visitor center has been closed due to COVID, but you'll just go and you'll get in line to ride the shuttle. And that line can range from 15 minutes to an hour, depending on the time you get there.
So what we recommend is go get in line, have somebody in your party kind of get in line for you, And then if it looks like it's going to be a little bit of a wait, go check out the outdoor visitor display, the visitor exhibits, and use the restroom and all that stuff while somebody's waiting in line for you, and then hop back in.
All right, then you'll get on the shuttle. The ride is 45 minutes to the last stop. You can stop at some of the other things and see viewpoints or do some hikes, but you'll spend the next half of the day in the canyon doing the things that you want to do, and possibly longer if you're doing some longer hikes. And you'll definitely want to have a lunch and some snacks packed with you, because there's only that one dining option in the park. And so make sure you have some food with you, and so you're not trying to rush back and get to Springdale to get something to eat.
By the way, the Zion shuttles are coming every 10 to 15 minutes during the busy part of the day and all that. So you don't have to wait very long at all for a shuttle to get you onto your next stop.
Then once you return back to the visitor center, then you have the rest of the day to go explore other parts of Zion National Park. Remember, that main canyon is only one of 4 locations to go visit within Zion National Park. In the evening, you may catch a ranger program. Maybe if you're staying in St. George, go catch the play. But that is a typical day at Zion National Park.
So we already mentioned that Zion is exploding in popularity. In 2021, there were over 5 million visitors to the park. This was more than double what it was in the year 2000. Now, that's not to scare you away from visiting the park. We've been there multiple times recently, and we've had great experiences. It's not too crowded, but you do need to know how to handle the situation. So we have many videos on a playlist that you can watch that's going to help you prepare for your trip, and it'll get you excited for your trip as well. And we encourage you to watch all of those. We have also created a guide for you. So this is a step-by-step guide to see the best of Zion National Park. This is going to walk you through your day. We're going to show you where to park, how to do the shuttles, what to see in the day. We're going to get you to the other parts of Zion National Park and show you the best of those areas as well.
And one of the best parts of our guides is it also has an audio guide included. Matt teaches adjunct history classes at our local university, and he really knows his stories of the West, and those stories will really make the park come alive for you. Both the guides come with audio tours. The 2+ day has over 2 hours of stories. The 1 day has shorter, but either way, you're going to get those audio files to teach you all about the park. And our guide is priced so competitively. It is less than the cost of parking your car in Springdale, and will just save you hours of planning and fretting. And then you can just watch videos, enjoy, and get excited about it, and know that the details of your trip are already planned, and you're going to really get to see the park efficiently and in the way you want to see it.
With the details in hand, with maps and with your itinerary just established for you, now you can kind of take a load off a little bit and listen to me tell you the stories of the park. I'll tell you about Zion in the movies. I'll tell you about Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I'll tell you about the stories behind some of the names in the park that you're going to see, like Angel's Landing and the Great White Throne, some of the real famous formations. So our goal here is to really take you on a tour of the park, and this is just what makes us so excited. So many people have bought our guides over the last year and a half or so, and just have told us how much they love their trips, and even have told us that their kids were kind of grumbling a little bit when they first started the audio guide, but by the end they were sad it was over, and they started listening to many of the chapters again. We
really appreciate you spending this time with us to let us talk to you about one of our favorite places to visit. Zion does truly feel like home to us. We've visited it so many times, but we cannot wait for you to go on your trip. And please leave a comment, send us an email. We would love to hear how your trip went, or any suggestions you have for us to help other people prepare for their trip.
Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, go west, young traveler.